Good morning, everyone. And
Good morning.
Morning.
today we have today we're here to discuss how employment can affect disability benefits and how the Ticket to Work program can help you return to the workforce. And before we introduce our panelists, I would like to have our executive director, Carolyn Growley, talk to you for a moment about CIL services and programs.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Carolyn Growie. I'm our Executive Director of the Center for Independent Living of Northwest Florida. And I myself am a person with disability who has navigated the benefits as well. And so we will look forward to all of the participant questions today and hearing from all the different panelists about different parts that they are involved in as well. Our mission here at the Center for Independent Living in Northwest Florida is to promote, educate, facilitate, and assist individuals with disabilities as they advocate looking at the ways in which they navigate their community and to partner with individuals and the community in achieving their goals. We cover services that are across 4 counties. So we work from Escambia County to Santa Rosa to Okaloosa and to Walton County. We provide services in all aspects of a person with disabilities areas of life with 5 core service areas: individual and systems advocacy, information and referral, independent living skills, peer training and counseling, as well as transition services. So sometimes those transition services are from work to home, or from home to work, or from school settings. It just depends on where that individual may be at in the point of life where they are. And we also provide services with assistive technology programs through our FAST program. That's the Florida Alliance for Assistive Services and Technology. We also do amplified telephone programs through the FTR program, which is the Florida Telecommunications Relay Services Incorporated. And we have equipment loans that can sometimes assist people at their positions. We do also offer social and recreational programs, support groups, community education, and training services, such as the webinar that you're all participating in today. We are a regional consultant for all 5 titles of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we look at ways in which we can help to facilitate life being better in our communities for people with disabilities. We are very proud to be able to have programs that work across all different aspects of services in our region, and we invite you and the community to join us in programs and services that we provide here at the center, whether they be through Zoom like we're doing today, through our website, or one of our social media platforms, in which, as an example, this service will be provided on Facebook Live so people can follow and see what we are doing. So again, we are so happy to be part of services in our community and work together across a broad range of areas for individuals with disabilities. Thank you so much for having me speak, Danny.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm going to stop sharing there for a moment. And we have 3 panelists with us today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you briefly. But as we go around, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about yourself and what you do and kind of your experience. So let's start with Michael Leclaire, who is who's retired from the Social Security Administration. So Michael, if you'll just share with us.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Michael Leclaire. As was indicated, I retired from the Social Security Administration here in Pensacola in May of 2011. I was a claims representative, so I basically took claims and I worked mostly with the SSI group. Like many of you, I grew up in the South. For me, it was South Brooklyn, New York. And so, but I've been living in Florida for 40 years, married, 5 children, 2 grandchildren.
Awesome. Our next panelist is Joanne Pearson. She is the Advocacy Outreach Coordinator, but she is here because she's utilizing the Ticket to Work program. So she's part of our roundtable discussion today as a user of the Ticket to Work program. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you, Danny, and good morning, everyone. I currently am the outreach, the advocacy outreach coordinator here at Sga Limit, Northwest Florida. And I've had the awesome opportunity of returning to the workforce through the Ticket to Work program. And it has really been beneficial to me and continues to be. So I can be asking questions for you and hopefully providing information to the public in regards to how it's working for me and what it has done for me. And then I will probably have questions for our other panelists that may help me and help others to be able to utilize the program even better. So thank you for having me today, and we'll go on to our next person.
Our third panelist is Sheree Hoffman. Sheree is from the Southeast ADA Center, and her job is to help with asking for accommodations in the workplace and what questions an employer may or may not be able to ask during an interview. Welcome, Sheree. You're muted.
Mute.
I apologize for that. Good morning, everyone. This is Sheree Hoffman, and I am from the Southeast ADA Center. The Southeast ADA Center is a leader in information, training, and guidance on the Americans with Disabilities Act. We also conduct research to reduce and eliminate barriers to employment and economic self-sufficiency, and to increase the civic and social participation of Americans with disabilities. We are a project of Burton Blatt Institute of Syracuse University, and we're one of 10 regional ADA centers in the ADA National Network. Our main center is located in Atlanta, Georgia. However, we serve 8 states in the Southeast region. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And before we start with our discussion, I just want to say, just for housekeeping purposes, you can chat with one another in the chat box and share with one another as you need to. But if you have questions as we move forward, if you will please put those in the chat box, or in the question and answer box, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. We have a number of questions that were submitted previously in advance, so we'll try to get to all of those questions as well, but we are looking forward to a lively discussion with lots of questions being answered. So if you'd like to start with a question that we had received, or I'll just go down the list if that's okay.
Go ahead and ask the questions, Danny.
Okay, so, and these are in no particular order of importance, but first question is, what is the monthly income limit that people on disability can earn?
I can go ahead and field that question.
Okay.
When somebody decides that they want to work, depending upon which program they receive benefits under, it's sort of like, the apples and oranges. They're both disability programs, but they're both affected by different law. When somebody decides to go to work and they earn $910 gross or more, by law, they are required to inform the Social Security Administration that they did start to work. Now, under Social Security disability, this will start what's called the trial work period. And for the first 9 months of starting work, you could make $1 million a week and it will have no effect whatsoever on someone's benefits. Then what will happen is When the first 9 months elapses, you go into what's called an EPE, which is an extended period of eligibility. This is a 36-month period, and now the numbers will shift. For 2020, anytime you would then make $1,260 gross or more, you would not be eligible for your Social Security benefits. And depending upon if you're paid bi-weekly, weekly, sometimes there's 5 pay periods on a weekly, sometimes there's 3 pay periods on bi-weekly. It's very possible that you can go in and out of payment. Once this 36-month time frame elapses, the first time that you work and earn what they call SGA, substantial gainful activity, we all know that is work, so we'll just use the numbers that we know. The first time after 36 months elapses, you would earn $1,260 gross or more. You would be entitled to 3 more payments, and then you would drop off the rolls for cash benefits.
Michael, could you also share how that number is different for individuals who are blind?
Yes, for blind, the SGA limit is $2,110.
And the reason that matters is that we work with people with all different types of disabilities, and we always want to make sure that individuals know their individual benefits, and that it's also different, correct me if I'm wrong, when it's SSI versus SSDI, is that correct?
SSI is affected immediately by income. It's a whole different project, and we can speak about that when the question comes up, or I can just go into it.
I think it would be helpful to have you go into just a little bit of the piece of just how important it is that they stay in contact with the Social Security office and how you help them to navigate that a little bit when it's SSI versus the SSDI, because it is a little bit different animal, isn't it?
They are different. But I would like to emphasize to anybody who's receiving benefits, I always just have a little saying I told clients, and that is, when in doubt, report it out. Better to hear, them tell you, no, Mr. Smith, thank you for reporting, but that's not exactly what we needed, than to just fail to report something that is going to have an impact on your check. Because, especially SSI, it's sort of tailor-made to get overpaid. Now, SSI, the maximum amount that an individual can receive if all things are 100% well is $783. I believe it's $522 if all things aren't well, and those things can be determined by your living arrangements. But with regard to work for SSI purposes, what they'll do is, if you receive no other type of benefit, if you're not receiving Social Security, unemployment, any other benefit in the form of unearned income, and we're just speaking entirely about earned income, you work and are paid, the first thing that SSI is going to do is they're going to look at your gross wages. They're not going to look at net income. Net income is what you'll see after federal's taken out, FICA's taken out, Medicare, so on and so forth. So they'll look at the gross income. The first $85 of your wages are disregarded. So, not too many people can live on $85 a month. So here's how it works, and it's essentially a very easy computation. And just for this conversation, I'll make it $1,000 an individual earns. So $1,000, take off 85, that leaves us $915. Divide that by 2, that leaves us $457.50. So an individual who's making $1,000 gross per month, their SSI is going to drop by $457.50. Now, one more little caveat to it. Social Security does things a little differently. The first thing the system is programmed to recognize is the amount of money that an individual earns, does it still allow them to be paid? And if the answer is yes, this individual making $1,000 can still be paid, then the $457.50 effect or drop in SSI is going to occur 2 months after the month that you start working. Now, this is a blessing and this is a curse. And the reason I say it that way is because for an individual who's going to earn $1,000 a month, they're working at Walmart, they're a store greeter, and all they're going to make is $1,000 because the store recognizes that the individual receives a disability. So they've agreed to $1,000. What will happen is you will report that you went to work for Walmart. A claims representative will ask you particulars. How often are you paid, biweekly, so on and so forth, which particular day of the week, how much you make per hour, and they'll put this computation in. And then what will happen is Social Security's system will go ahead and calculate out 14 months into the future just how much money you're going to make. And given the right information, it will say that an individual will make $1,000 a month unless they're in a 3-pay period month, and then it'll become $3,000. So here's the blessing and the curse. The first thing that happens for an individual that makes $1,000, we know that their SSI will drop by $457.50. Obviously, they're still in pay, so that's going to affect the individual 2 months down the line. So we're in October, so let's say we started working October 1st. So my SSI check is going to drop by $457.50 in December. There's the blessing. For the month of October and November, I'm going to get my full SSI check, even though I'm making $1,000 a month from Walmart. When I reach December, I go down by $457.50. Now let's take it a little further. We continue to work for the next 2 months, and all of a sudden I realize, based upon my disability, I can no longer do this job. So I inform Social Security that I effectively stopped working in February. Well, here's where this retrospective monthly accounting comes into play. Here's the curse. You will continue to have your benefit affected by your wages for the month of February and March, and then April is when your check will return to its normal pay of $783. So what I would suggest to anybody who's considering working is, if you're going to go ahead and work, if you're on SSI, go ahead and do the calculation for yourself. And also what I would do is I would put some money aside when I receive my full check, as well as I receive my paycheck, because the blessing is great. But once you stop working, you still are going to be affected by your past work for the 2 months into the future. And so you have to be able to have a little nest egg put aside to make up the difference that you're not going to get until, in our example, the month of April.
Well, that's a lot of good information.
Is that clear as mud?
That's a lot of good information. So does anybody have a follow-up question to that before we?
Well, my question would be in regards to the work program under SSD. Okay, so just so that I have the timeline correct. So
Okay.
when I first go back to work,
Mm-hmm.
notify Social Security that I've returned to work.
Correct.
Is it best to notify by phone, or is it better to write a letter explaining, how much I'm making and how, all of those things that you said, putting them in writing?
Well, if I were to do that, and now, I'm no longer an employee of the Social Security Administration, Anything I'm saying here today is not endorsed by the Social Security Administration. That's a disclaimer I'm putting out there. If it were myself and I were going to go ahead and write to an individual that I started working, I would send it by certified mail. And the reason I would do that is because, you know, somebody's going to have to sign for it down there. I'll be very honest with you. Letters, proofs that are sent in have a great tendency to get misrouted and lost entirely. If you call on the phone, before we conclude our business today, I will give you the double secret telephone number to the local office, which is not posted in the phone book. But I would go ahead and call locally. If you live in Pensacola, deal with the Pensacola office at 411 West Garden Street. The third option, and it's not really available at this particular time due to the COVID, is I would actually go into the office, sit down with the claims representative, and go ahead and make that information known, because Social Security claims representatives are broken down by last names of clients. And you know, your alphabet could be S, M through you know, TR, and all the names that would fall in between there. So generally, every day there's a social or an SSI claims representative who is basically at one of the windows, and they're going to take all walk-ins that have to come in to report changes. And if they do it that way, then everything will come out accurate. The mail, I'd be a little bit leery unless it was certified. And telephone call, you know, you may get one individual, especially if you call the nationwide number, and you could try 100 times in a row and never get that same person. If that person is not vigilant to input what you said, or if they even know how to make the input, then you in your mind made the report, but no change has occurred. Which, let me just say this real quick. If you inform the Social Security Administration that you have gone to work and you know that your check is going to be affected, especially for SSI, because if it's over $85 gross, it's going to be affected. If you see that your check has not gone down, something went wrong, and you're going to need to do a follow-up phone call. So my advice is, once they open the office, I would go in, but I would do it by certified mail in the present.
Thank you, Michael. That really helps me.
Michael,
I'm
I
sure
have
it's
a
helped many.
follow-up question to that. I have a follow-up
Sure.
question to that, and this came previously, but you talked a little bit about the SSI amount that people can earn. Is it different, or what is the amount for SSDI or Social Security disability income? What's the difference?
The numbers are you know, SSI people can really return to work without a trial work period, because any income affects SSI. It affects it in some way. And generally, if you have some form of income, whether it's unearned or earned, it's going to affect the individual. Social Security has a different type of program. You know, they would, the trial work period, or the $910 gross, really, if you earn $500 a month, you know, and you didn't tell them, it's really no harm, no foul, because it's not going to affect your check until you reach a trial work period amount, which is 910. But once you reach that 910 amount, you are required to let them know that you went to work, and you are going to start a trial work period, which is 9 months long. You could make as much money as you possibly can with no effect on your disability check in any way, shape, or form. But once that 9-month period elapses, you then go into this extended period of eligibility, an EPE they call it. Now, the numbers change. You're allowed to make a little bit more. The SGA level substantial gainful activity level in an EPE is $1,260 gross. If you make that amount or higher, it will stop your Social Security check. And again, depending upon if you're biweekly paid or you're weekly paid, it's very possible you can continue to still draw checks. They may go out and in, based upon your hourly wage, how many hours a week you're working, how many hours self-employment you're working, so on and so forth. So, there's not real a hard and fast rule to it, because there's two different amounts that a person who receives SSD, as they like to call it, Social Security Disability, as opposed to SSI, Supplemental Security Income. Two disability programs, but apples and oranges.
Thank you for making the distinction, Michael, because I think a lot of people forget that there's two different programs.
Mm-hmm.
You get, if you've had your 40 quarters of work, I think that's correct, 40 quarters. And
yeah, you have to have worked
different.
5 out of the last 10 years to be what they call currently insured.
Okay.
So as a follow-up to that, how long can a person, or how long can you work without losing your benefits?
Well, if you stay at, if you stay under SGA, let's go back to the original person who took the job at Walmart as a greeter. As long as that individual is making $1,000 a month, it does not vary. You can continue making $1,000 a month and it will not stop your Social Security check.
Okay.
Yes, I'm receiving, under my ticket to work currently, I am, my SGA level is the 1260.
Correct.
So if I don't make anything over 1260, then I will continue to receive my benefits. But
Correct.
the minute that I earn more than that, my benefits will be affected once I'm out of the extended
period of eligibility. Yes.
And also, one of the other pieces that both the center and your Social Security claims representative can help do is to look at any of those work expenses that somebody may have. So if somebody is spending $300 a month for travel and they're blind, or if somebody has to have assistance on the job, or if somebody needs to have certain equipment that they need purchased in order to do their job, all those kinds of things all come off of that gainful employment amount of funding. Is that correct, Michael?
That is correct.
Yes, I think they call them SRE. They're work expenses.
Yeah, they have a
that I keep track of.
Yeah, they call them IRWEs, impairment related work expenses. Social Security loves its acronyms.
Yes, sorry, I was a little off on that one. I have a list that I'm keeping, and like Carolyn said, I think it does come off if it's a valid expense on that list that Social Security has on their website. They do publish it there.
Yes.
Falls there. You have to keep your receipts.
Yes.
You can take it off of it comes off your gross income to bring down your pay, and that will be, I guess, accounted toward your SGA. So if you fall under SGA, once those are taken off, you get to keep your benefits.
Absolutely. So it's imperative to keep track of it. Just let me say this real quick. There's a pretty good periodical that Social Security puts out. It's called The Red Book. I highly suggest everybody, go ahead and Google that. You can find the Red Book on the Social Security's website. I believe they have it as a PDF on the internet, but it really goes into all the things that we're speaking about in depth.
So going back to the trial work period, which is 9 months, could you clarify what happens after the 9 months?
After the 9 months, you go ahead and you go into this EPE, this extended period of eligibility. and it's a 36-month period of time. And when you enter your EPE, you are now subject to the Sga limit, substantial gainful activity. The work limit for 2020 is $1,260 gross, $2,110 for blind. And anytime in this EPE, this 36-month period, that you earn $1,260 gross or more, you are not eligible for your check in that particular month. Oh, here's one other thing. Thank you for bringing that up because it reminded me. Under the Social Security program, Ssdi, where you work and pay into the system, they go ahead and they look at income when it's earned, not when it's paid. SSI is, they look at the income when it's paid. So I say that because, you know, you might be in a bi-weekly period and, you know, instead of getting the third check in this particular month, based upon the calendar, you know, you're paid the following month. But you have to remember, you worked at least, you know, 7 to maybe 10 days in the prior month. So they're going to count everything you earned in the month, not when it's paid. So that's very important.
It becomes very confusing for participants, and that's another great reason for people to both consult with Social Security, but also come see us here at CIL. Give us a call. We can help you talk through what's going on with each of those parts of your benefits. And as Joanne's talking about being on the Ticket to Work program, her Ticket to Work individual can also assist. And there are lots of resources out there for people to consider being able to process what's going on, because it's certainly easier to do it as you go along and when you do it up front than it is to try to backtrack and figure it out. Because sometimes then when you really need something, it's already gone. And that's much more difficult for us to be helpful as well for you. It's much easier to be that support person who's trying to be on the call with you as you're talking to Social Security, or trying to be with you when you go to meet on Garden Street, or to be working out on paper with you and your employer. How will you work this out and figuring out what support you need to be effective in your job? All those pieces, we are happy to be the support services and be the support role as your mentor and as your guide towards your being successful in your employment.
Absolutely.
I have a question for Sheree. Sheree, when somebody is looking at returning to work and their job, and they're getting ready to go on an interview, when is the best time, if at all, would a person reveal their disability, and what is the best way for them to do so?
Well, Joanne, I want to clarify that with the ADA is a legal definition rather than the medical definition that we are discussing. However, the segue is there because disclosure and accommodation requests can be made at any time. And it's important to remember to not wait too long, because you don't want your job or your place to be placed in any kind of jeopardy. So if you're going into a job and you know that I can do this job, I'm qualified for it, but there are some essential functions to it that I might need that accommodation, we stress always to ask for it before it's too late. In order to get an accommodation, an employer must accommodate every facet of employment, from the job interview all the way to training, to access to the lunchroom, disclosures where they identify having a disability and having difficulty to do the job. So there's not always a right way. It can happen at any course in time during course of employment. I know some people who work for years and don't require one. So it's important to have that discussion with you at the CIL. And of course, if they need further guidance, we're always available at the Southeast ADA Center for technical assistance as well.
Sheree, that
Sheree,
leads-
how can they get in touch with you at or whoever? What number would they call? We want to make sure that we have that for our participants on the webinar today. Where would they call to get more information about the ADA?
Well, the toll-free number is 800-949-4232. Now, that number will get you any ADA center in the United States. So, for instance, if Michael were in New York visiting, he would get another ADA center. However, if he's in the Southeast region, he's going to get the Southeast ADA Center. So 800-949-4232, and just let them know that they're trying to get some information and assistance.
And I have to just also share that from being involved in centers for independent living across the country myself, and being an ADA coordinator as well, that the ADA regional centers are fabulous. You know, you get to talk to folks like Sheree or her colleagues, and when you have a question, because they are covering such a wide girth of individuals across the country, they often can come back with the legal concepts of what's happened, as well as give you scenarios that have been effective for others. And it's been very, very useful to individuals themselves, as well as to the center or to employers who may have questions also about what's going on. So thank you, Sheree.
I have one last question for Michael because we're getting close to our end time. Michael, if someone is not reporting because they haven't heard anything from Social Security in regards to, you know, they've notified them that they've gone back to work and they're trying to keep track of their expenses and they're keeping track of their wages, but they haven't been told how to report yet. And say they've come to the end of their 9 months. Okay. And so now they're moving into that ESE period, like we talked about, their extended period of eligibility, or EP, sorry. What should they do about their check? Should they be saving it? Can they spend it? What's the procedure that typically a participant in the Ticket to Work, or even on SSI, if they're not reporting and their check hasn't changed? I know for me, I would not want to be in an overpayment situation. So what should I do?
Well, under Social Security, you can save all the checks you'd like. You can have a fleet of vehicles, you can own 10 homes. You're receiving benefits based on paying into a system that you qualified for. SSI is a needs-based disability program. Therefore, there's only so much money you can have or hang on to, because a single individual is allowed to have $2,000 worth of resources. Well, what is a resource? Anything that can be made liquid within 60 days. So they're looking at money in the bank. They're looking at more than one vehicle. They're looking at life insurance policies that have cash surrender value. They're looking at burial policies. They're looking at funeral plans, things of that. And so an individual, $2,000 could get to 2,000 extremely fast. So you have to be very careful. The other thing that happens with Social Security, especially when somebody, or SSI, I should say, when somebody is first entitled, and let's say they go through the administrative law judge process. So they're going to be paid retroactively from the month after the month of filing, and their back benefit, may be $25,000, give or take. Under Social Security disability, you get it, they're happy for you, that's the end of the story. But under SSI, the first thing they do is they go ahead and they give it to you in increments. So once they put you in a pay, they want to get you in a pay first. They'll give you your first installment. They're going to give you 3 times the amount of SSI. So 783 times 3. 6 months later, you're going to get another 783 times 3. And then 6 months after that, whatever the balance is left over, they're going to drop into your bank. Now, that's fine. And most people who are waiting, especially if they go through administrative law judge hearing, you know, they've already got outstanding bills, so you can spend the money down pretty quick. But when they give it to you in chunks like that under SSI, you have 9 months in which to spend that money down below 2,000. That's the key. 2,000 or more puts you out for SSI. Anything underneath, you're in. So, you know, you have to be mindful of situations where Social Security's or SSI is giving you chunks of money. Where Social Security is concerned, you know, you can save all the checks you want, whether they're your, you know, if you're used to living off your Social Security disability check, and so your work check is sort of like a bonus to you, sure, you can sock that away, you know, sock it away for a rainy day. It's not going to harm you in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I think, Michael, the point that I find really necessary for our constituents to know is that if they know themselves that they are now beyond that 9-month work period and they're now earning more money, but Social Security hasn't caught up yet to stop their checks, that they not spend that money, that they actually keep in the bank and keep that money safe until the final determination of what they may owe, or that the money is cleared and that it is theirs.
Yes.
Because otherwise they will need to be on a payment program to return money to Social Security because they won't have it available to them.
100% correct. If, you know, if you see your check isn't being affected, you know, something is wrong. So, you know, certainly be proactive. You know, I would love to say that they're at your disposal. They're going to call you up, and, you know, the only time they're going to deal with you is really when you contact them, or they have to contact you for some reason. And that was a very good reason you just gave about, you know, them mismanaging, or they didn't get the information that you have gone to work and now you're beyond your trial work period, and there's maybe 5, 6, 8 months that you weren't entitled to a check. Yeah, absolutely hang on to that money. Better you get a little bit of, you know, savings off of that, you know, in the form of interest, than have to pay the government back 1 dime. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Michael.
Maybe this is a good time to give the local telephone number for the Garden Street office.
That would be great.
Sure. It is 1-877-505-4550. 4550. 877-505-4550. And most people have the national number, but if you don't, it's 800-772-1213.
Maybe one other thing that people should also know is if they have access to the computer to get the PDF, or if they want to make their own printout of things like the Red Book, they can. But they can also request a physical copy of this information. And often the center has, but even if they just want to request it themselves, you as participants in the programs, a lot of times you will get updates that will come to you, and it can come in the format that is useful to you. So it can come in standard print or large print or electronically. And so people can get information provided to them in a manner that it should be most useful to them.
Absolutely.
Social Security did send us some handouts to post to our website along with this roundtable for future viewing. So those will be posted as well on the CIL website, which is www.cilnwf.org. So look for those on our website if you're interested in downloading those PDFs.
And, you know, we didn't share earlier, but just to make sure, so you can contact the CIL by writing to info, INFO, @cilnwf.org, or you can call us by dialing 850-595-5566. And as Joanne already shared, I'll just share it one more time, our website, which is www.cilnwf.org. So we look forward to talking to anybody.
Is COVID affecting benefits at all, Michael? Do you know?
No, they're still working. They're just working from home. Anybody who is has already been approved for benefits, there's no interruption.
Okay, and then the disaster that happened, we're currently, people are making their claims with FEMA for Hurricane Sally, and now, we're in a situation right now where we're waiting on Storm Zeta, whether it's going to be a hurricane or a tropical storm. Does, if a person is receiving any cash benefits or any resources from their insurance company or from FEMA, does that affect if they're on SSI, will that affect their benefits in any way?
It will not on SSI, and it does not under SSD, Social Security Disability. But specifically SSI, anything that's government related like that, FEMA, insurance, no, it will not.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a final question for Sheree, and this question came in previously along with the rest of them. And as she was talking about the accommodation, a request for accommodation, one of the questions is, can an employer or is an employer allowed to ask about your disability? Sheree, could you address that really quick?
So an employer cannot ask about an individual's disability. Even if the individual comes in there and it is a disability that is very apparent, such as someone using a wheelchair, they cannot ask the question, how did you get in that wheelchair? They can't approach it during the job interview. They can't approach it during the hiring. They can't approach it until the individual discloses that they need a disability and there's a medical documentation that might be needed. And then that even gets into a very much more complicated matter, is how much medical information can the employer require. So it's really important that employers understand to not broach that subject. And if somebody were to come in and they use a wheelchair and the employer felt like maybe there were some essential functions that a wheelchair user may not be able to do, they can say, how would you perform this job? But they can't say, why are you in that wheelchair?
That's good to know.
Thank you. That's all the questions that I had that were submitted before we started. So thank you for answering that.
Do we have anything from our Q&A?
There is nothing in the Q&A. Everybody did such a great job addressing issues and talking about things that there are no questions in the Q&A box.
Okay, and then we will be fielding questions as they come in on social media, and those will be answered and commented on our social media platforms. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Very
Have
much.
a great day.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing everyone. Bye-bye.
Everybody do well in the storm.
You
Thank
too.
you.